The era of Tiki-taka slowly ended with the popularizing of the counter-pressing, also known as the Gegenpressing style, which managers like Jurgen Klopp and of course Ralf Rangnick employed. Now, the point of the Gegenpress is to cut off passing lanes and to win the ball higher up the pitch. By creating a 3-2-5 shape, it means that there are 4 players that are occupying the central region, and many teams that are playing a 4-3-3, it means that there is numerical superiority in that midfield. Now, to counter this, many teams against Pep Guardiola's side started to use a very interesting pressing shape, which we can call a 4-2-4 or a 4-4-2. The first team that truly had much success in this was Manchester United. Football has always evolved, and in the modern game today, we are seeing a surge in the importance of the tactical aspects of the game. The tactical flexibility and dexterity of coaches and managers are becoming increasingly important, even more so than the technical proficiency of the players that play the game itself. In the Premier League, for instance, because of the little difference between the technical abilities of the players that play for several teams, we are seeing that tactical flexibility of managers is quickly becoming the deciding factor between who finishes in the European places and who fights for relegation. Little tactical details here and there now is almost as important as the technical proficiency of the players themselves. Now, it is no more news that the pattern of play, which includes patient build-up from the back into the middle third and then the final third, is becoming very popular in the Premier League. Many teams, I think it's just maybe about 2 or 3 teams in the Premier League that don't base their whole philosophy on building out from the back. Every other team in the Premier League, at least they try to when it's possible. And because of how rampant such a tactic has become, we have seen a lot of other teams, in fact, some of the same teams that base their philosophy on building out from the back, they've mastered several variations and adaptations of high pressing shape. And to that effect, it's becoming increasingly difficult for teams to be able to build out from the back effectively. It's getting very difficult. And in this video, we will be taking a look at the statistics. What does the stats say? How effective is high pressing against the build-up shape? And if it's that effective, what possible evolution should we see from certain philosophies? Are we going to see a total change from teams building out from the back? Or are we going to see some variations and adaptations of the general shapes that are used to build up today? In this video, we will be answering all of those questions. If you are new on the channel, do well to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and click on the notifications button so that you get notified when there's new content on the Football Slides TV. Now, in the 90s and in the early 2000s, build-up play was a majorly direct long ball to a big striker up front, and we didn't really see teams playing out from the back as you know it. This is because teams, especially in the Premier League, had a big striker up front with a 4-4-2 formation, have a big striker up front. The goalkeeper can just punt it long and get the striker to try to win these percentage balls, second balls, and people running off such a striker. It was very popular, and there were not many teams that played out from the back. However, the general principles of build-up play can be traced to the total football style that was developed by Rinus Michels, who was, of course, a Dutch football manager that managed Ajax. It was actually popularized by Johan Cruyff in the total football system of play, which was, of course, like I said, developed by Rinus Michels. In modern football, however, we have seen that the Tiki-taka style that was popularized by Pep Guardiola has set the tone for that style of play that includes slow, patient build-up from the back. The successes of Barcelona in 2009, winning the treble, and of course the Spanish national team who won the European Championships in 2008 and in 2012, also winning the World Cup in 2010. These teams based their philosophy on Tiki-taka. What is Tiki-taka? Of course, anybody watching this video should already know what Tiki-taka is, but for anyone you've never heard of Tiki-taka before, Tiki-taka is simply positional play that has to do with, keeping the ball, quick short passes between players, creating triangles all over the pitch and trying to move the ball into the thirds. It relies on build-up play, slow, patient build-up play from the back, and then walking the ball up to the final third and probably even into the back of the net through quick passes, quick short passes. That's basically the summary of what Tiki-taka is all about. So one of the most important principles of Tiki-taka that was popularized by Pep Guardiola at that time was the build-up play from the back. And as at that time, although, like I said, we have seen build-up plays right from the time of Rinus Michels in the 70s. In modern football, that was the first time in modern football that we saw such a tactic. The era of Tiki-taka slowly ended with the popularizing of the counter-pressing, also known as the Gegenpressing style, which managers like Jurgen Klopp and, of course, Ralf Rangnick employed. Now, the point of the Gegenpress is to cut off passing lanes and to win the ball higher up the pitch. Like I said, the Tiki-taka was all about possession. It was all about, these short passes, and what Pep Guardiola's teams, or teams that employ this philosophy, what they try to do is to create little triangles all over the pitch. So there are triangles all over the pitch. In a 4-3-3 formation, there are triangles everywhere. So what the Gegenpress seeks to do is to cut off those passing lanes, to ensure that those little triangles, those little pockets that have been created by several players in the midfield are cut off. So there's no way to pass into the midfield, and if there's no way to pass into the midfield, they can then press high and win the ball high up and then counter. So this counter-pressing style of play was, would I say, the Achilles heel of Tiki-taka, because the moment teams started to play in a Gegenpress style, we saw that the Tiki-taka started to slowly get phased out. Now, there were other factors that led to the phasing out of the Tiki-taka, including the decline of the players that were the kingpins of that style of play, such as Xavi and Andres Iniesta and Sergio Busquets. But generally, there were so many things, like I said, that led to the decline of Tiki-taka, but these were the key reasons for the decline of Tiki-taka in the game. Tiki-taka might have slowly, started to fade, but there were many teams that would still try to build out from the back, even though they were not particularly playing Tiki-taka. Now, for varying reasons, teams still liked to, play out from the back. And I'm just going to touch on some of these reasons why I feel many teams still liked to play out from the back, even till today. One of which is ball retention. Now, one of the drawbacks of the direct vertical play that we used to see in the 90s and in the early 2000s was that many of the balls played there into the striker as a long ball. Many of those balls were percentage balls, and a percentage ball is such that it's a 50-50. I mean, you may win the ball, you may not win the ball. So managers, in a bid to introduce a lot more predictability to their play, they decided that it's much better to play out from the back. There is less pressure on the players, as at that time at least. There's less pressure on the players. And another reason why many managers started to play out from the back was because it helped to create methodical attacking patterns in the middle third, and then of course even in the final third. So because you're playing out from the back, you can create patterns of play that would continue from the defensive third into the middle third and the final third. It's much easier to create your patterns of play in such ways. Another reason why teams started to play out from the back more frequently was to exploit teams that decide to press high. Now, as at that time, when playing out from the back really became popular, not many teams were pressing high, but the few teams that pressed high, the build-up play was used to exploit them, such that when a team presses them high, especially teams that are not pressing with a structure, because as at that time, not many teams press with a structure. You just see players running out of the structure like headless chickens and all of that. So it's easy for the team that is building up to play the ball to one side, with quick passing, switch it to the other side and counter. It was very effective. And even in cases where teams press out with structure, you could still, with quick passing and movement and rotations, you could say that the team can easily switch the play and then counter. Which brings us to our next point. Now, to prevent opposition teams from building out effectively, then teams and managers have started to come up with different variations and adaptations of the high press to make it a bit more difficult for teams to actually play out from the back. Now, to that effect, there have been different adaptations of the general build-up principles that we know, and of course, the different high press shapes that we know. There have been different adaptations of that. But currently in modern football, the most popular ones that we can see of the build-up shape is the 3-2-5 shape. Usually teams line up in a 4-3-3 or in a 4-2-3-1, and then that is the formation, and that formation in build-up slowly moves into a 3-2-5 shape. And in fact, there are many teams that they don't just use such a shape in the build-up phase, but they also use it even when they progress the team to the attacking third, having 3 defenders, 2 people to stay in the defensive midfield or in the midfield, so to say, and then 5 attackers to occupy both wings, to occupy the half spaces, and then to occupy the center forward position. There are different ways in which a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 or any formation that includes a 4 at the back, there are different ways for it to morph into a 3 at the back. That can happen either by the team dropping his goalkeeper into the back two and then splitting the back to the goalkeeper acting as a third center half in building up. But of course, that would have to involve a goalkeeper who is very, comfortable with the ball at his feet. And there are not many goalkeepers, or I would say there were not many goalkeepers that were quite good at that. But now there are so many goalkeepers that are comfortable with the ball at their feet and could act as that third center half. Another thing that could be done is the defensive midfielder dropping in between the two center halves, splitting the two center halves, and then ensuring that the two center halves can stay wide and one of the fullbacks could join the midfield, or we could see a situation where there will be the two center midfielders will come up, then the fullbacks can push up and join the attack, also to make a 3-2-5. There's also the system which was popularized by Pep Guardiola, of course, which he used to win the treble in 2023 with Manchester City. The system where he was able to put a defender, a center defender into the midfield and allowing both fullbacks to join the defense to make it a 3, and then a center defender, which was many times John Stones, joining Rodri in the midfield to form a 3 and a 2. There are so many ways in which a team can morph from a 4-man backline to a 3-man backline and 2 in midfield, and it's more effective actually when there are rotations. Okay, of course, so that it will make it difficult for the opponent to know who is in which position. The point of doing this is to create numerical superiority in the midfield. Now, let's take Pep Guardiola for instance. Pep Guardiola, right from when he was at Barcelona, his key principle is always creating +1 in midfield. Creating numerical superiority in midfield is what Pep Guardiola has always tried to do. When he was at Barcelona, you would see him sometimes play 6 midfielders, not playing any forwards at all. You see him, if he likes, he can decide to play 8 midfielders or even 10 midfielders. He doesn't care, as long as there is numerical superiority in midfield. Now, what that does is that it helps, like I said, Pep Guardiola was the one who popularized the Tiki-taka. Of course, we all know that. And that means that he likes to have control in midfield. And when he has control in the midfield, it helps him to be able to execute his plan a lot better. By creating a 3-2-5 shape, it means that there are 4 players that are occupying the central region. And many teams that are playing a 4-3-3, it means that there is numerical superiority in that midfield. Now, to counter this, many teams against Pep Guardiola's side started to use a very interesting pressing shape, which we can call a 4-2-4 or a 4-4-2. The first team that truly had much success in this was Manchester United when they beat City in the FA Cup last season. But before that, many other teams had tried such pressing shape against Manchester City to varying degrees of success. The reason I think it's not very easy to press City high in that shape is because one, they are very good on the ball. They can easily break through that press with quick passing. Most importantly, Erling Haaland is a physical monster. By going long to him, he could win the ball and then the whole press is of no effect. But the point of the 4-2-4 or 4-4-2 high press shape is to help to cut out the passing lanes in the middle and then force the opponent wide using press triggers and of course ensuring that you press them towards the touchline and then use the touchline as a guide, force them back, make them go long, or just make them commit errors that could lead to high turnovers and probably even a goal. Like I said, many teams are increasingly using this 4-2-4 and 4-4-2 shape to high press against teams that build out in a 3-2-5 or sometimes even in a 3-1-6. And to this effect, we are seeing a surge in goals coming from high turnovers. We're seeing a surge in teams making errors while building out from the back, and it's getting increasingly popular in the Premier League last season and this season. To that effect, let's take a look at some statistics. Last season, according to the stats, there were 1,245 goals that were scored in the Premier League last season. Now, out of that 1,245 goals, 205 goals were scored from high turnovers. So, out of 1,245 goals, 205 goals came from high turnovers, which is, of course, from situations where the team is building out from the back and then make a mistake or commit an error, of course, and then lose the ball, and then the opposition counters and gets a goal from it. Now, that's a 16% of the total 100% of goals that were scored came from high turnovers. Now, to put that into context, in the Premier League, a lot of people believe that set pieces cover a huge amount of goals, and that's why many teams often take set. In fact, there's a dedicated coach to set pieces. Let's take this stat into context. Like I said, the total goals from last season in the Premier League was 1,245 goals. and then the goals that were considered from high turnovers was 205. The goals that were considered from set piece across the entire season was 237, which is a 19% ratio. Now, if 16% of goals came from high turnovers and 19% of goals came from set pieces, it means that the extreme attention that is given to set pieces could actually be given to high pressing, which could then lead to high turnovers. Are you getting what I'm trying to piece together now? So it means that high pressing is almost as important as set pieces now in the modern game, which explains why many coaches and many teams are trying to, press high and get their teams to press high. Statistically, it has been proven that it is a very, very effective way, to get goals. There have been 83 goals scored in the Premier League so far this season. And out of those 83 goals, 13 of those 83 goals have been from high turnovers, which makes it a 15.6%. Now, that's also very similar to the percent from last season, which means, like I said, once again, underlines the fact that it's increasingly getting popular, the high press, high turnovers leading into goals. Now, because of how many teams are taking their high press very, very seriously, it means that it's going to get increasingly difficult for teams to build out from the back. To that effect, there are two possible outcomes I see from this tactical evolution. The first one is a different variation or different adaptation of the build-up patterns. You might have to see teams building up in a 2 or a 4 because the point of having the 4-2-4 is to, like I've explained before, is to block out the passing lanes into the middle. But by having a 2, by either having the goalkeeper drop or having the fullback stay high and wide, you might see a situation where the fullbacks can spread out the defending team, or if the defending team decides to stay narrow, there will be spaces out wide to potentially counter. Another possible outcome I see from this is that, we could end up seeing teams going long once again, having to sign a big striker that will be able to win the balls up there. And, that's what we saw in times past. And we could eventually see that style of play come back again. Because like I said, teams are pressing high and it's leading to a lot of goals. Or who knows, Pep Guardiola could come up with one, crazy tactical variation and that everybody now copies it again and then we're back at square one because that's what has always happened over time. So let's watch out for Pep. Who knows, this season Pep could, come up with something that will just blow our minds again and every other manager will start to copy this invention. Well, let's see how it goes. That's my take on this tactical evolution that I've noticed in football recently. What do you think about it? What do you think we're going to see next from managers? What do you think we're going to see next from Pep? And do you agree with this analysis? How surprised are you at these statistics of having so many goals coming from high turnovers? Please drop it in the comment below. I'll be there to reply and let's have a discussion about what you think about this information. Do well to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and click on the notifications button so that you get notified when there is new content on the channel. My name is Goodness Eze. See you in the next video.